other people as being better or not better. Not your color, not your race, not your tribe, not your language. These things are something which we recognize and acknowledge. So you see, we come from a particular background, from a particular culture. There's nothing wrong in acknowledging that. You see, many of the people, the early people, like take Bukhari for example, Imam Bukhari, he comes from that region. That's why he was called Al-Bukhari. That title was granted to him. Yes, and there are many other people who were given this particular title based on the geographic location they come from. Just to recognize them, because at that time many people are called Muhammad, you know. And if you call everyone Muhammad, to identify more individually, there's nothing wrong in taking the aid of the geographic location or the tribe you come from. Nothing wrong in that. That is you accepting your culture.
Where your culture overtakes your religious beliefs. Where's the line between that? And I feel like a lot of...
I don't think you should compare your culture and religious belief in the sense that should you be more cultural or should you be more religious? You see, your culture is something that you cannot change. It is something that you have not chosen, you're born into it.
Your religion. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, so if the culture...
Pakistani culture especially.
Okay, in that sense, yes, you're right. So if the culture is teaching you something, for example, some cultures have this caste system. So even some Muslims, yes, they have this sort of, oh, this person who's a Chaudhry cannot marry this other person who's from the same tribe or something. And this tribalism and this kind of, discrimination is something that is not allowed and permitted in Islam based on that. Like I said, the only way you can distinguish someone is based on their righteousness. So you can recognize someone is more righteous than the other person, and that is a distinction you make, not because they come from a particular tribe or color or race. You discriminate them on that basis. And you're right, you know, you will face these things in culture, because obviously you are married into like it's a cross-cultural marriage. So you will have, whether you are a Muslim or a non-Muslim, you'll face this issue. Trust me, it's got nothing to do with the fact that you are a Muslim. But it's possible that some people are more understanding and they have had experience with other cultures.
It's even with their own culture,
yes.
and fair. I see it happen quite a lot. And it's a bit upsetting to be honest, and I feel a bit of a fear. As a black girl in London, I have experienced racism in my childhood. And then getting with an Asian guy, I've experienced racism in that level. And then to wear a hijab, I feel like living in a white area, I'm making myself even more of a target. And I know I shouldn't say that, and if Allah comes first, I shouldn't even think that way, but it is a fear I have living in London, especially with Muslims having such a bad stereotype on them. Like even my own family, they sometimes say some things that I'm shocked, like the stereotype, because they hear what's on the news. I think I have a fear, and I need to...
You mean you have a fear of your physical life?
And calling myself.
So are you saying that if you wear hijab in this community where you live, do you fear for your life?
I would, because I fear now even...
Are there other people in that community who do wear hijab?
Not many.
Not many?
Yeah. Where is that? It's in southeast London, Eltham. So it's Eltham. It's starting to become multicultural, but you always have areas that are predominantly white, and they will never change their standpoint, and they'll always have that perception.
But you don't do it for them.
Of course not, exactly, and that's why I feel I'm at the stage where I need to learn more about Islam to really commit, because I don't want to just...
Have you ever seen or heard somebody who has been injured or harmed because they were wearing a hijab in that area where you live?
Nearby, there's been videos on YouTube. And
No, in your area. Because you know sometimes it's just a fear which comes from something that you cannot explain rationally. It's a fear of a different culture. Sometimes it happens that. I'm not saying you go and put on the hijab tomorrow and try to experiment, see what happens. But if something is realistic, then obviously you have to take the correct measures and defend yourself in that from that thing happening to you. And this is something that your life is more important than anything else. Yes? So this is something that we should take as priority, your life. Because in the Quran, Allah tells us that you're even allowed and permitted to conceal or to hide or even to lie that you are a Muslim if you feel that you're going to be killed. But then the better taqwa, the more righteous, is basically to deal with that situation and to speak the truth as well. So Allah has given you both options. So if Allah Himself has given you this option that if you are in fear of your life, then you're permitted to lie. So, for example, if somebody got a gun onto your head, and they say, unless and until you renounce your faith, yes, I'm going to kill you. Yes, you see, by your tongue you can tell them, yes, I renounce my faith. But in your heart, you'll still maintain the belief in one God and believe in Allah and the Messenger. And this is something that we have been given as an option from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He's merciful. And what this shows us is that Allah says that your life is something of higher value than anything else. Yes? And this is quite important. But then your faith will remain with you regardless of whether they burn the Qurans or go about and mess up with your locality and everything. But when it comes to taking your life, then you have this option. If they have given you this option, then you take the option where your life will be saved. Yes? But then, like I said, the higher taqwa of someone who really wants to be a martyr, the other option is open as well. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, like I said, it might just be a fear. Yes, you know, many people, they had this fear before donning the hijab. But then after they wore the hijab, they found immense respect in the society. So the boys who would basically look at them in a very wrong way, they might, I don't know, somehow disrespect them and all that.
Another point. So if a woman doesn't wear hijab, in my eyes, if I was blessed with beauty, why is it a sin for me to show that beauty? Isn't it a sin upon the man for seeing me in an attractive way? Like today, I'm covered from my neck to my feet.
Yeah.
But to some Muslims, they would deem that unacceptable. On that standpoint, that's where there's a lot of things that I believe in the fundamentals, but I feel like I need to.
Yeah, because in Islam, one thing that we give high regards to is modesty. And that goes for both men and women, not just women. Okay? For us, a woman is something which is like a precious gem. So for example, if I ask you if I give you two chocolates and one chocolate is wrapped and the other chocolate is just a chocolate and I throw them on the ground, yes? I tell you to pick up one and eat, which one will you pick up? The one that is wrapped. You see, this is what Islam is, in terms, just to explain the modesty. Yes, it's not because of your beauty to conceal your beauty. What Islam is saying is that your beauty is a right for your husband to see and enjoy. It's not everyone's property that everyone can enjoy. Yes, because what happens?
Yeah, I understand, but then you buy a nice car and you wouldn't cover that up.
No, but a car is not something that is looking for modesty. Yes, a person will be jealous of a really good car if he doesn't have it. Yes, or he might desire a better car if he already has that. Yes, but a car is not something you marry. A car is not something that is real. Will be able to tell you, oh, look at the way he's whistling at me, like as if I'm some sort of object of some sort of sexual object. You see, a car cannot express this thing. You as a human being can. And this beauty of yours is for what? It's for a limited time. Yes? The beauty of both men and women, one day is going to come when you have to deal with something that maybe your wrinkles, maybe you might not be happy with your body. You see what I mean? And this is something that we all go through. So you see, Islam wants you to be respected whether you're young or old or black or white, regardless, yes, for what you are as an individual rather than just your beauty. Because that is, I think that is quite, superficial. To respect and to look at someone and to admire someone just because of beauty.
How do you choose your wife? You choose them based on their beauty as well.
Yeah, of course you do.
But then that's contradictory because let's say I covered from here and you wanted to meet me and choose me for your wife, I would have to unveil my face.
No, but you see, there's a difference between asking someone to unveil with the intention to marry them.
Do you see what I mean? It's like,
it's not double standards, it's different things.
So what, an ugly woman should never be married?
No, that's not true. Who said that?
Yeah, but then
beauty.
Every guy says no based on her beauty. But shouldn't you be doing it based on the purity of their heart?
No, you heard of the saying, beauty is something which is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Yes? So maybe some people like the beauty of the character of the person rather than just their face.
You never get to know the character if you choose them based on a meeting in front of the parents.
But that's what I'm saying. That's not what Islam says. Islam doesn't just say that you only choose beautiful looking people. Yes? We are not taught that. In fact, your religion and your character and your beauty has to be taken into consideration, not just your beauty. So all these things that we have been taught by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ 1400 years ago still stand true. You know, there are many people, unfortunately, what this society has done to many women and some men as well, is that they have actually lost the self-esteem. Some of them, even though they're beautiful, they go to expensive plastic surgeries, yes, just because to make their nose a bit smaller or a bit bigger or something, yes?
That's 100%.
Now you look at it, what has the society done to these people? if you look at them, some of them, they look hideous after they have grown old, because now that thing doesn't fit their character because it's artificial. Yes, and they go through so many different medical expenses, all these things which they could have used for themselves or their family. So this is what it is. Today, if you look at most of these fashion industries, who is leading the fashion industries today? Women or men? No, it's the men. Yes, the Gucci's, the Armani's, all these people are men mostly who run the industries. Of course, there are exceptions to that.
But they set the standards of what they think beauty is.
Absolutely. Take high heels, for example. Yes, I know you're not wearing any. I look down just to make sure. High heels, if you look at it logically, it's not something that is convenient or comfortable for the women to wear. Not only that, it basically harms your body, your feet, if you use it for a prolonged period. Yes? But look at it today. The women are wearing it because the fashion industry has told them that they look more sophisticated and beautiful and they look more sexy, yes, if they wear high heels and walk in a certain way. Because when you wear high heels, you walk in a certain way. And this is what, you see, these things...
Then what would you say to a Muslim woman that's covered, that is wearing makeup, high heels? Is she not going against the whole objective of being modest?
Well, she is in a way. But you see, this is what I'm telling you. This is what society has done to not only Muslims and non-Muslims, but everyone who follows that particular... You see, today, the reason that people follow a certain fashion is because this is what the society has imposed in a way, not directly, but indirectly. Because you're bombarded with this fashion and with these particular things that you hear and you see all the time. And when you hear and see something regularly, continuously, you think that is what the truth is and that is what I should do, regardless of how illogical or how much it harms your body. But Allah has created you and me, and Allah knows what is best for you and me. So when Allah says that a woman and a man have to dress modestly, has to cover themselves in a modest way, this is not because you are beautiful that you have to cover or you are ugly that you have to cover. It's basically it's to preserve your modesty and also to preserve yourself as a beauty for the person that you're marrying, for them to enjoy and not for the whole world to enjoy. Yes, it's nothing to do against you as a person, as an individual, but it is actually a protection of the individual rather than put them in harm's way in any way.
Another point.
MashaAllah, beautiful girl wearing hijab here. Alhamdulillah, Allah give her barakah.
About the 4 wives thing, my mum is quite skeptical about it because she just hears what's on the news. She's not very informed, and she knows that you can have more than one wife.
Why are you smiling?
I don't think you can marry for a wife. In these days,
look at the smile on his face.
that doesn't happen.
Something you're not telling me. Something you're not telling
You
me.
can even marry one. How can you marry for a wife?
Okay, wait. There's actually a good defense against that. If you don't want that, you can put that in a marriage contract.
But technically,
If you put that in a marriage contract, your husband cannot do anything if he's agreed to the contract beforehand. So that already nips it in the butt.
Okay.
If you as and most of
I've heard that they can go against.
no, they can't go against the contract.
No?
They can't.
Okay.
You can actually void the contract if you do that, because this contract is binding for both of you.
Not a legal marriage, clearly.
It is a legal. What do you mean?
That's bigamy to have more than one, like in an English legal.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. No, I'm saying even if he wanted to do it illegally, yes, Islamically he would be breaching the contract because that contract is Islamic contract. The one I'm telling you about is Islamic contract.
What is the purpose of it?
I'll tell you what. You're talking about not only marriage as in general marriage here, because you see Islam and the Sharia is for all times, for every time. It's not for a particular nation or a particular people or a particular tribe. It's something which is universal, and because of this universal nature of Islam, it has to look into and basically accommodate all different situations. So take the example of World War II, when you had in Germany, for example, there were a lot of men who died during the war, a lot of them, and you had a surplus of women in that community. And now you have so many women and they don't know because they can't find partners, they can't find people to marry. Yes, they're young women and they want to get married. They can't find husbands because there are very few men. They've been taken or they might be too old or might have died. We don't know. So how would you, in that society, resolve that situation? Yes?
I get what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
One way is to have more than one wife by that husband. You know what happened in Germany at that time? They had to legalize prostitution. Yes, they had to legalize prostitution, and because obviously, because obviously the men and the women, they both have desires. Yes, a woman wants to get married, can't find husband. What is the next solution for her? Yes, if it is not a legitimate marriage, it'll be something that is haram, that is something forbidden, something that is immoral. And that is exactly what happened in places like Germany, where the number of women far exceeded that of men. So this is a situation of war, and this situation happened during the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when there were wars as well.
But even today, the ratio of men to women is like 5 women to 1 man. So you're saying it's legitimate to do that in this day and age?
There you go. You have answered the question yourself. So what is the alternate solution? You tell me.
I get
if you don't have enough,
the sole purpose of us being here is to reproduce. But then why are us as humans, if we're animal instinct is to reproduce, but we have the feeling of love and emotion. Yeah.
By the way, marriage is not just for sex.
Well, a lot of guys see that as a pass.
If they see their women or their wife as just an object of sex, then they probably are not. Yeah, something definitely wrong with them, regardless of your religion. Okay, because this is something which is a misconception and misunderstanding of many people. The whole idea of marriage is where your right as a woman and your right as a man is protected. And the right of your children, of course, the right of inheritance. All these things come into play when you talk about marriage.
Again, you haven't mentioned love in that.
No, love is of course part and parcel of that.
That's another question. With like arranged marriages and things like that.
If you look at
but in that culture, then marriage is for, as I just said, it is just about the reproduction, and it is based on just sex. Then
no, I don't think so.
So that they can get into a
relationship. Even if it is an arranged marriage, by the way, there's no guarantee that a love marriage is going to be intact.
No, of course.
You see what I mean?
Of course.
And there are many arranged marriages who have remained intact for many years.
Yeah.
And by the way, this love marriage thing is not something that was always the case, even in Europe. Yes, it was arranged marriage here as well. They used to find a suitable partner for both the men and the women in this society as well. So it's something which is quite new. It's not something that is only found in the Islamic culture, because you'll find this also in the Hindu culture. Yes, in the Buddhist culture. All this in Asian communities, in African communities, you'll find this arranged marriage. So it's not something that is only within the Muslims. And love is a very important and fundamental part. If you read the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, yes, the amount of love that he had, even though he had multiple marriages, the amount of love he showed to his wives is something which is clearly mentioned in the seerah. Like I was saying last week, that the Safiya, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's wife, he used to make sure that the camel that she sat on was comfortable. He used to give his own cloak and put it on the camel's saddle, so it's soft and gentle when she rides it for her. Makes it as comfortable as possible. They used to drink from the same cup and eat from the same plate sometimes, just so that the love increases between the two of them. And this you'll find throughout the story of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It's very important. Just because it's an arranged marriage doesn't mean that it is wrong, and doesn't mean that it is right all the time either. Obviously they have to be compatible, and this is something quite important, and that's why we have something called engagement. You engage, you don't just marry directly. Yes, you have a time period before you do the nikah, before you do the marriage, where you see the compatibility of that person. That doesn't mean they go on dates or something, okay? But it's sometimes young people might jump into a marriage without realizing the faults, the pros and cons of that the partner that they're going to marry, and they will just head on because they are blinded by the love and the passion.
But I do feel like the culture and the religion sometimes can force them into that. Because even us,
a marriage,
the family aren't accepting of a relationship.
A marriage by force is not a marriage in Islam. In Islam, if you're forced into a marriage, that marriage can be annulled easily by the qadi.
The idea that your family wouldn't accept it, you feel like you must marry. Do you get what I mean? If you want to have a sexual relationship, a lot of these boys feel like that's what they must do.
Oh yeah, I mean, are you talking about sex outside marriage?
Well, no, even before you get to that, young boys nowadays, because the religion makes it out that you must be married straight away, they're just jumping into
not straight away. Look, what the religion prescribes is this, that if a young person, whether male or a female, if they have reached the age where they feel these urges, yes, to basically, so instead of them becoming immoral and practicing immorality, Islam permits you to get married. Yes, obviously in the country like Britain, there's a different age where you get married. In some other countries, there's a lower age, and some other countries there might be a lesser age. So whatever is the legal age limit, this is something that if Islam permits you to get married, it is only for you as an individual to not to fall into a sin or into immorality or some harm. You know, today we hear of many teenage pregnancies and all these problems, abortions at a very young age, yes, where they go through these psychological issues, psychological problems because of these abortions and these breakups. It's something that harms them at a very young age, and to basically repair that, it's something. Sometimes it's irreparable, and sometimes it takes a lot of effort.
I get what you're saying, but even if, let's say I was an 18-year-old girl married in a Muslim relationship, that doesn't mean it's going to work. I could be
I'm not saying
still a single mother.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's going to be guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's why you as an individual have to choose your partner, and you as an individual have to choose your partner that they are someone who's compatible, that your marriage is something that's going to last, and it's not just going to be something maybe like just for temporary purpose and temporary time.
Another point, sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
The age of responsibility. Is it true that Muhammad or someone in the Quran married a 9-year-old?
It's not in the Quran, it's in the Hadith,
Okay.
So in the Hadith, yes, there are Hadiths, authentic Hadith, where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ married Aisha radiallahu anha at a very young age. And this is, you know, at that time, it was something that was a norm.
It's not even a childbearing age.
You see, what is the childbearing age?
When you start period.
Exactly, and that's when she got married. So she had reached the age of puberty because some women in certain countries they reach puberty at a young age, especially hot countries around the equator, which is quite true. So at that time, even their life expectancy used to be less. So they used to have, some of them used to have life expectancy of maybe 30, 40 years. So when they become like very young age, 9, 10 years old, they already have acquired the
maturity.
No, that's what I'm saying. At that age, they have already acquired the maturity to go into a marriage. And these are the two conditions. So it's not just reaching puberty, but the other condition that the ulama say is that you should reach the age, the mental age, where you can handle a marriage. Because if you haven't reached that age, even if you have reached puberty, some of the ulamas do not permit it. And this is what I'm saying. This is something, at that time, it wasn't just the Muslims. The Christians, the Jews, the pagans, the atheists, it was something that was a norm at that time. It only became maybe 100 years ago or something, or 200 years ago, where this became a norm that yes, you have an age of consent, which became like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah,
yes?
Portugal is 14. You get married. 14
marriage was in the nikah, wasn't it, at the age of 9?
Yeah. And besides, in America even today, there are many child marriages, because there are still certain communities where they want their girls to get married at a very young age. So you see, this is something which I say is not only in Islam, but most of the Muslims that you know, yes, and you know and that I know, they married at a legal age in this country or in other countries, because then it is illegal to marry anyone younger than that age, because then you'll obviously be accountable to the law, and you're breaking the law of the country. Yeah, and that still applies everywhere. And that is the first thing. And this is, like I said, this is something that we find in different cultures, not only in Islam. Yeah. So, I mean, if you got any other questions, please feel free to ask.
It's just a lot of misconceptions, and especially, I don't know a lot about the religion, and to have my family questioning my decisions also, it's going to be a hard struggle, but I think I need to understand more about the religion itself.
I think you should
But
keep,
do
you got any
agree
friends?
that I can have the belief and read the Quran and interpret it through my own heart, because I feel that a lot of Muslims, they force you, well, if you don't understand it, look at the hadiths. If you don't understand the hadiths, go to this person at the mosque. But I feel like that's then that person's interpretation of it, and that's where you get the divisions
you have to read it by yourself.
in the religion.
But you see, the Quran itself says that if you do not know, ask the people of knowledge. So the Quran itself says
Would
to
you not
ask.
agree that some of those people of knowledge could be
I'm not saying.
corrupting
I'm
the
not.
youth of today? And
Absolutely,
that's where you
yes.
get some people preaching hate.
So what you should do is you should look at some knowledgeable people who are able to give you the knowledge that you seek, who are reliable, who are not extremists, who are not fanatics, yes, and who know their deen clearly and properly. So it is up to you. Just like when you go and study a particular topic, you'll choose the best of teachers. There are lots of dodgy teachers out there, regardless of what field you go into, not only religion. And we should use the same common sense when we go and look for a teacher to teach us. Because you see, I'm sure there's a mosque near you, or maybe a person who might be knowledgeable in that deen. So go to them, and if you feel something is dodgy, something is iffy, then you change to someone better. But there are knowledgeable people, even in England, even in London, lots of people out there who are willing to teach you as an individual your deen. There are classes. Many mosques, they run classes for new Muslims.
I don't know if you was here, this is how the conversation started. I was saying that if I have the belief, and let's say I do pray, but not in the way that maybe I should as a Muslim, because I'm kind of unsure of how to. So would you say that my prayers aren't heard? And let's say I died tomorrow and there was a Muslim girl that lived a similar walk of life as I do, but because she calls herself a Muslim, is she any more likely to go to paradise than I am?
Well, let's put it this way. I as an individual, yes, cannot decide who's going to hell and who's going to heaven. But one thing is certain. In the Quran, Allah has told us to obey His messenger. Yes? So obey Allah and obey the messenger. And what obedience to messenger means? To follow his sunnah. Yes? Which you will find in the hadith. Even the hadith...
But the hadith was written after
I'm coming to that, yeah. Hadith, what is hadith and sunnah? It's something that the Prophet ﷺ himself did, his action, or something that he said. And this wasn't after he died. This was during his lifetime. Yes? Where he would tell his companions what to do in a certain incident or a certain situation, or for example, how to interpret a certain verse of the Quran. Yes? This is something that they received directly as knowledge from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now the hadith being written afterwards, that is not the main thing. For us, it is not when it was written, but it is when it was revealed or when it was said. Because the Arabs at that time, they used to memorize things. They used to memorize things like the genealogy of their horses. Yes, huge genealogy. So we're going back. Horses, you know, not someone even in your family, not your family tree. So they had this habit because not many people were learned. So they didn't have this, the luxury of going to a school and learning to read and write. So they used to memorize things. That was the best and easiest way for them. Because some of them used to spend days and sometimes even months in the desert, yes, away from all sort of civilization, away from any contact. So they had to somehow remain, they have to do something, isn't it? So they used to recite poetry, learn poetries, and that's how they used to pass their time. So yeah, coming back to this written after, for us, the propagation of both the Quran and the Hadith is twofold. One is the oral tradition, and the other is a written tradition. So we don't believe there is only the written tradition. For us, it's actually the oral tradition which actually came first before the written tradition. Because at that time, the paper was also very expensive. So you can't just find any paper and you can write on it and then store it in your drawers or something. This is something that came later on. So before that, they used to memorize it. And then they started to write it as well. So for us, it's twofold. So any person who tells you the Hadith, Bukhari came 200 years after, or Muslim came 200 years after, they have to realize that these collectors of Hadith, because they collected and compiled the Hadith. From where? From people who had already memorized it. And they themselves, the people that had memorized it, they memorized it from their teachers. And they from their teachers, and so on, all the way to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this constitutes something called the chain of narration. And even, for example, I'll tell you, you know the way the Quran is recited, it's called the qira'ah, the tajweed. Yes, the correct pronunciation of the Quran. Even there is a chain for that. A chain of preservation of the tajweed itself is there. So for example, if I want to be a qari, if I want to be someone who recites the Quran with tajweed, I cannot just go and teach anyone. I myself need accreditation and some sort of a qualification and permission from my teacher, who himself has learned it from his teacher. And this chain again goes all the way back to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So we got three things. We got the Quran itself, the words, the letters in the Quran. We got the way it is pronounced. And we got the hadith, the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. All these three have a chain of narration which was propagated throughout history until today. So for example, if you go to a proper qualified teacher of the Quran, he will show you that this is my chain of narration from my teacher, and he's from his teacher, and so on. And then only I can actually go and teach in this school who accepts only qualified teachers. And this is something that is called the place. It's unlike any other faith. You won't find this in other religions. This is something very unique to Islam.